evening, everyone, and welcome to the Evermore End of the Season Awards show. I'm your host, Chris, and I've been joined with some proper winners. I've got Mark, the stat man, I've got the lynch man, and Lee for the first part of the show. This is going to be a show of two halves. We're going to go international and bring some of the boys in a bit, but for now, this is the squad we've got the back four for the first half. How are we doing, lads?
Very good, man. Thank you.
Good, mate. How are you?
Thank you.
Yes, very good, very good. Glad the season's over, guys, and obviously glad we stayed up. We've got loads to talk about. Absolutely buzzing to go through this. Just before we do a little bit of housekeeping, everybody, if you've just tuned in for the first time, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button. We are absolutely flying at the minute. Massive thanks and appreciation to everybody who's interacted with us over the weekend with our Rumour Has It transfer videos. They've been absolutely brilliant. We've loved doing them. We've had loads of nice comments, loads of subscribers. We're currently sitting on about 674, I think, Mark. Would love to get over the 700 this evening if you can. We're aiming for that 1,000, that magic 1,000 for YouTube channels if you can. It'll be absolutely amazing. So smash that button, click the notification bell, and every time we're going to come and have a bit of chat or something Newcastle United related, you'll soon know. So listen, lads, let's get stuck into it. We've got an action-packed show here. It's all about awards. We're going to kick off with the first one, and that is Player of the Season. So this has caused much debate in our Evermore chat room. So coming to you first, Lynchman, on this. Few candidates to choose from, few obviously that were nowhere near, but who was your Player of the Season, mate, in your opinion?
I think if you look at overall consistency throughout the whole season, there can only really be one winner, and that's Joe Linton. Look, I can't think of any other player in the club's history who's managed to turn his form around like he has. It's been incredible, really. And that Norwich game, you go back to November of last year, that was a turning point for him. I was asked to drop into the midfield role he's now synonymous with after Kieran Clark got sent off, and he's never looked back since. And that was a pivotal moment for him. Look, he's now the complete midfielder. His defensive contributions, his tackling, his blocks, winning possession back, his contributions to the team this season cannot be underestimated. And we don't win half as many games this season without him in that team. I genuinely believe that. Look at how much we missed him in that Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge, for example. And look, he's also chipped in with a few important goals this season too. The brace at Norwich, the two that really kind of come to mind for me. And overall, I couldn't give it to anyone else but him. I mean, maybe you could argue, if you are looking at it in a different perspective, one of the 3 January signings, Bruno, Dan Burn or Matty Targett. But as this is a Player of the Season award, I think it would be unfair of me to give it to one of them. Bruno stands out a mile here, but he's only played half the season. Look, I'm almost certain Bruno will win it next year if he keeps up his outstanding form. Look, on the basis of a full season, there could maybe be an argument for Fabian Schär as well. But look, I've got to go with Joe Linton. I don't think anyone else is more deserving of it than him, and he's my pick.
That's a good shout. It's a good shout, James. I can imagine it's echoed by quite a few fans. Lee, I'm coming to you next, mate. Who would be your choice for Player of the Season, mate? Are you going Joe or are you going elsewhere?
It's quite interesting what James was saying about basing it on the full season. When making my choice, I actually looked at the second half of the season because I don't think you could have picked a player in the first half of the season that was a standout candidate for Player of the Year. And for me, based on the second half of the season, as good as Joe Linton has been, obviously he's a standout candidate. I've gone for Bruno. I think Bruno was a transformative signing, not only for the club, but also for the team in terms of what he's brought to our midfield. And I don't think Joe Linton would have had the second half of the season that he's had. I don't think some of the other players would have had the second half of the season that they've had without Bruno being in there, making things tick, demanding the ball. He's just added that little bit of star quality for me to our central midfield. And his presence and the way he demands the ball and he recycles the ball very, very quickly, and he's always showing for the ball, he's freed up the likes of your Joe Lintons, your Shelbys, your Longstaffs. They've flourished as a result of Bruno's presence. So for me, Player of the Season, I would have to go for Bruno. You talked about some important goals. I mean, for somebody who's not a goal-scoring midfielder, 5 goals in probably, I think the last dozen games, those were 5 very, very important goals as well. The first goal at Southampton, we all know about that one. The winning goal against Leicester in the last minute. I think I've still got the bruises from that day. Sealing the deal against Arsenal. I just think as a Player of the Season, I can't see past Bruno because of the effect he's had on the rest of the team, not only on himself.
That is a very, very good show, mate. And I'm going to come to Mark next. It's got to be Gillespie for you, Mark, and Goalkeepers Union. You picking Gillespie. He's carried them waters amazingly this season, mate. He deserves some kind of recognition.
He's done a tremendous job, hasn't he? Bless him. But no, to be fair, I was torn between the two, if I'm honest. I think Joe Linton, since James touched on it before, since that Norwich game, he has just transformed. We did our own. We did our own take on this, didn't we, earlier on? When he was playing so well, and he's just been a different player since then. Bruno, though, has had such an immense impact since he's come in. That first few games where he wasn't playing, and people were starting to question what was going on, and it was always like, well, you've got to bet him in quickly. Since he's come into that side, though, he has just been on another level, and is that now level where Newcastle have to take on from, and it's difficult to see past him. I did go with Joe Linton, just because I think over the 35, 36 games that he's played, I just think he's played the majority at a good level, and I think he's done such a great job. But yeah, for the time that Bruno's been there, he's been just magical.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to fall to me to announce the winner, as we were talking about it in the group chat. We went with the lion's share votes, so including all the lads, Di and Adam, who are going to be on the second half, PK, who's sunning himself, enjoying the many cervezas. So have a good evening there, PK, and Dan as well, who's drowning in uni work. So altogether, I think the average choice, or the most frequent choice, there was only one winner, I think, was Joe Linton. We were splitting hairs, as Mark said there. Bruno has been unbelievable, sensational, and I'm pretty sure he's going to get an award in the next few minutes. But for the player of the season, consistency and transformative, as James says there, I mean, I've never seen a better recovery since Tyson Fury got punched by Deontay Wilder than this guy's. The way Joe Linton popped back up from just the basement of football, the shit heap of what a waste of money, what a crap player, can't kick his own arse, all the superlatives that we all named. Christ, I called his fans Joe Siples, for God's sake. That's how bad I thought he was. I couldn't understand how anybody thought this guy was a player. And, Eddie Howe comes in, waves that magic wand to his, and it gets this guy to go from a shit striker to an unbelievable midfielder. And if you doubt it for 1 second how transformative Joe Linton has been, Mark has done a comparison slide here, which can be a little bit skewed if you look at it in a certain aspect. However, there's the golden boy of the Premier League. I'm going to hand this to you, Mark. The golden boy of the Premier League in midfield is Declan Rice. Now, I was a bit harsh on Declan Rice. I should say he was overrated, but I can see there's a real player there. But Declan Rice can do no wrong in the footballing world's eyes. Just show the guys watching along how good Joe Linton is next to this guy. Slightly different players, but in terms of the combative nature. Yeah.
I think let's give it. I am not for 1 second saying that these are the same player at all. But I just wanted to, when I was looking at some of the stats, and some of them jump out completely, in Rice's favour in this regard in terms of passing. But we said earlier on in the season that the job that Joe Linton was being asked to do was not to do with retaining the ball, passing the ball. It was about disrupting. And about playing that role where you were winning the ball back. And when you look at the stats in terms of his aerial duels and blocks, number of pressures he has per game, number of tackles per game, they are above the golden child of the Premier League in terms of that position, really, is an English perspective. But like I say, he's not an equal in that regard, but I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the stats that Joe Linton has got from this season, and bearing in mind that that's the full sort of year, so it takes into account times when he's not done that particular role in midfield. But those stats are just sensational in my view. In that there are some that you want to be a little bit higher, and he's not that complete player, but just as a base to look at, he's done a magnificent job. And I picked up on. I was just going to say one of the comments as well from Stu was, does he need a new squad number befitting of his new role?
No, he's the Magnificent Seven, Stu. You got to keep him as the Magnificent Seven, mate. Don't mess around with squad numbers. But I think Simon made a good point there in the comments as well, Mark. If you can pull up that I think he said Rice has had a 10-game head start when we were poor under Bruce, and that's a fair shout. That, I mean, in Joe Linton's kind of perspective, that player was there. You know, there was glimpses, even when he was crap, there was glimpses of just little bits where you thought there is something there. I mean, to be fair to Mark, you used to say it all the time when I was ready to pack the guy up and drive him back to Brazil at one point, and you were saying, no, you know, there is a player there, and it took great management by Eddie Howe to spot that. Because as James rightly said, when Kieran Clark was completely stupid and got sent off, we haven't done wanker of the season, but Clark wins a hands down for me after that stupid tackle. But when he gets sent off for that ridiculous pub team tackle, you know, Eddie Howe just doesn't all of a sudden go, hey, do you know what, Jason, I think we could just stick him in the midfield, see how it goes. He's done that in training. He's put Joe there, and he said, do you know what, he can do a job there, and it's been in his mind. And then, as you rightly said, Lynchman, when Clark gave him that opportunity, he took it, didn't he, Eddie Howe? And it was a fantastic decision.
Well, that's the markings of a top-class manager right there in Eddie Howe. Steve Bruce would never have been able to do something like that. Look, I think Eddie Howe, he had a dossier on all the players, the whole squad. You know, he had even transfer targets lined up before he was interviewed for the job. I think he's seen something in Joe Linton that nobody else, including us four right here, has seen. And he was just waiting for the right opportunity to give him a run in midfield. And that was the perfect moment. I think, you know, kind of fate aligned and everything like that. But you argue kind of moments of the season when it come on to that next. You could argue Kieran Clark's red card. That was up there with one of the most pivotal and important moments of our season. And what then happened after that? What transpired?
It absolutely was. And that's a nice segue, Lynch, man. You're after my hosting job again, I can tell. You will be hosting in a couple of weeks, mate. Don't worry about that. I've got some work commitments. So, yeah, moment of the season is our next award to give out. And I mean, there's a few things that crop to mind. One thing in particular, Lee, I'm going to come at you first on this, mate. What's your moment of the season, pray tell?
There's been so many that you would consider. I mean, the 10-minute period before the start of the Spurs game and for the first 5 minutes of the Spurs game will, I call it, stay with me forever. But ultimately, for me, the moment of the season has to be, I think it was 27 minutes past 5 on the 7th of October, 2021. The fact that the takeover happened after, let's be honest, what was it? I first heard about the takeover driving up the A19 to the Oxford United Cup game. I think it was in January 2020. That's when I first heard about this takeover being mooted. We sat through lockdown. We refreshed Twitter. We tried to consume every single piece of information that we could actually find on it. We had the rug pulled out from under our feet in July 2020, when the consortium apparently walked away from the deal for whatever reason that was. We had that where that was as low as I'd felt as a Newcastle fan for as long as I could remember, because that hope had just been sort of snatched away from us, and the frustration that came with that because of the reason it had been snatched away from us. So for it actually to happen on the 7th of October last year, it was just one of those moments that every single Newcastle fan, I think, I'd be very surprised if they cannot say where they were when that news broke. I was actually driving home from work. Obviously, I live in Scarborough, so I wasn't up in Newcastle for it. Oh, God, I wish I had been. And I actually had to pull the car over. And genuinely, driving home, I must have been around about half a mile from my house, and it broke on the news. I had Radio 5 on. I'd been listening to Radio 5 all day. I'd done literally no work because I was just trying to find out what was going on all the time. God knows what my boss must have been thinking. And as I say, I actually pulled the car over because I needed at least 5 or 10 minutes to compose myself, because it was one of those moments where it was just, it's
washed
done.
over you. Absolutely.
And it was more about the fact that he had gone rather than what might come next. For me, absolutely. The what might come next was all to follow, obviously, but for me, it was just that moment where he's gone and he's no longer going to be a stain on our club and our city. So for me, what you call it, October the 7th, 27 minutes past 5, without a doubt.
Yeah, but PK's in the comments, mate. He's got the handkerchief ready in Gran Canaria where he's baking hot there. Another Lee Foster monologue. He's like Ross from Friends, is Lee. I've got to go to Mark next for this, because the evermore moment of the season has possibly just happened when Mark's cat nearly popped up to co-host, and Stu did see you, Kurt Zuma, as he's called you there, which is absolutely brilliant. So well done, Stu. I love that in the comments, mate. Super.
Honestly,
what was your moment of the season, Mark? Apart from trying to stop your cat taking your hosting spot there.
If it's not that, it's the dog. So there we go. I'm just getting from both sides. No, to be fair, my moment of the season, it has to be the takeover. Just the scenes outside the stadium that night were just unbelievable. I mean, I pretty much spent 24 hours refreshing everything I could just to keep up to date with what was going on, and then it was a little bit quiet, and then I was coming home from work, and just it sort of broke on the radio when I was driving home, and yeah, you come home and just seeing the number of people outside the ground, and it's just a change in the city. I've said this from the moment it happened. You can just see the change that's gone on, and it's just I don't think you will get a better moment than that at all until maybe there's a league title or something like that. But even then, I just don't think you can top that feeling at that point.
Absolutely. I mean, coming to you, Lynchman, as well, before I decide the winner here. What was your moment of the season, mate? I could probably, if I'm not a gambling man like PK, but I could probably put a safe bet on this, mate, what your moment of the season is.
I mean, this, out of all the categories that you gave us in the group chat, this was the easiest one for me. I didn't even have to think about this one. The takeover again. This was my favourite moment supporting this club ever, never mind this season. In the entire time I've supported this club, this moment was my number one favourite moment. As Lee rightly said, I don't really want to repeat what he said, but he summed it up perfectly. Thursday, 7th of October, 2021. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the whole day. Look, this was the conclusion of what felt like, 18 to 20 months worth of speculation. So many close calls. And I remember the summer of 2020, it seemed like the consortium had given up. Such a huge blow, massive blow during lockdown, but you've got to give massive credit to Amanda Staveley for sticking with it. She never gave up hope. It was a massive relief when it was announced that day, and it was very, very emotional, and I celebrated hard and long into the night and possibly for the next 2 days. And so you're starting to dream about, who you'd be signing next and who the next manager was going to be. And all this started happening, build up, and that excitement, that feel-good factor just came back immediately. It was just like someone had clicked their fingers and it was there again. And 14 long years of absolutely turgid, horrible football was finally over. And I was so pleased on a personal note that I stuck with the club and I stuck with my ticket, and I didn't give up that season ticket. And I always held on lightly, and like PK out there, I always held on to that hope that there was something around the corner. And it felt like an eternity that way, but it eventually came. And yeah, the first game under new ownership, even though we lost 3-2 to Spurs that day, it didn't really matter. The atmosphere, the occasion, it was a special day. And yeah, look, the takeover, I'm sure I won't be alone with this choice, Chris.
No, listen, obviously it falls to me to say who the winner was. And as you rightly say, Lynchman, it was the easiest category at all to pick out. Everybody more or less just jumped straight in with the Newcastle United takeover. It was transformative is the word we've used it for Joe Linton. But as both you and Lee rightly say, James, that you could feel it in the city. I know you're saying, Lee, you weren't here. I wasn't in Newcastle, nor was Mark. Obviously, we live up here. You could just feel it in the air. It was almost like it was just somebody had just opened the windows and let all these horrible spirits just fly out that were cockney bastard fat ghosts that just disappeared. Mediocrity. Just this horrible dour feeling of going nowhere as a football club, nowhere as a community as well. People were depressed. People were sad going to the games. The city was flat. One change, one flick of the switch, and it was electric. I mean, you've seen Manchester City had a title parade. There wasn't even as many people there than there was for our bloody takeover announcement outside St James's Park. And that shows you the passion that exists in this fan base, in this community. Sam Fender was there with cans. Our own Dan was there as a trainee journalist, getting trampled on probably by everybody who was pissed out their brains enjoying it. But it was all done in great nature. It 100%, it was the moment of the season. Arguably, it could be the moment that defines this club in its modern era. In 15 years' time, Lee, when your lad's all grown up and, he's probably helping you up the steps that St. James has probably made. But, in those years to come, this will be the moment that we all look back on and say, that's when it happened. That's when it changed. And without a shadow of a doubt, it's a worthy winner of moment of the season, no question whatsoever. And we're just so excited to see what happens next. We've got so much to get excited about, as we have as a channel as well. We've had some great interactions because of this excitement's here, because there's stuff to talk about. This would never have happened under Mike Ashley, just four blokes moaning about how shit we are. You get some people watching, of course, but it's not as exciting, obviously, as it has been going forward, guys. So yeah, absolutely take over, hands down. So the next category we've got, from the highs to the lows, I suppose, is flop of the season. So I'm going to come to you on this one first, Mark, for flop of the season. There has been some shit performances. There has been some poor players in this Newcastle team, regardless of the miracle that Eddie Howe and the lads had pulled off. Who's your flop of the season, mate?
Again, it was. I think I sort of went a little bit backwards and forwards between a few here. Woodman was on my list because I had high expectations of when he played and he didn't perform. I thought Joe Willock at times was poor and just didn't hit the levels that he should have done. But he has had some good games, so I moved away from that. Kieran Clark was obviously one as well. But to be fair, and I know he's, we always say he works hard and stuff, but Chris Wood, when you spend an amount of money, and I know that's not his fault, on a striker, and he's done very little in terms of goal scoring, I know that's probably really harsh, but I just think he needed to take chances that he was given. I know he wasn't given an awful lot, but he had to have done a little bit better. So I went with Wood. That's I'll probably get shot a little bit, I think, from some people for that. But and I think we'll have some similar views. But I just think, I think when you're brought in for that amount of money, I think you've got to stop putting the performances in.
Yeah, flop and Wood. I can see the dick jokes flying in the comments in the next few minutes, mate. That's a fair comment from Simon as well about Woodman. I think Woodman, we expected a lot of Woodman. I know he was a young keeper, but he just looked atrocious, didn't he, coming in against Manchester United in particular. He looked like he was there for Ronaldo's autograph, didn't he? Just Simon again saying, never going to get the goals from Wood. Work rate helps others. Yeah. And Ash should say Chris Wood, biggest flop since Dick and Forsby. So just moving on to your flop of the season, Lynchman. PK's got one there before we jump in. Kieran Clark for me, although he is responsible for the rebirth of Big Joe, as was said, mate. But who's your flop of the season, Lynchman?
Again, it has to be Chris Wood for me. As Mark rightly said, I think for the money we spent on him, the release clause was £25 million. 2 goals in 17 games, and 1 was a penalty. No assists in that time. That's just not good enough. And on the flip side of that, Callum Wilson comes back in at the end of the season. He matches that tally in 2 games. And I think it is. I think it is fair to compare the two because Wood was signed as a direct replacement for Wilson when he got injured. Now, again, like Mark rightly said, some people might think we're being too harsh on the lad. To his credit, yes, he has contributed in some sense to the team in terms of his physicality and bringing other players into the game. But he's not the answer moving forward. If we want to become a top 6 side, Chris Wood isn't the man who's going to get you 15, 20 goals next season. Look, by no means has he been one of the worst strikers in the club's history. Far from it. I'm not saying that. But I just think his level now at the age of 30, he's nearly 31, it's lower Premier League standard, possibly Championship. And if we are going on flop of the season for the money he costs and the goals he scored, and let's forget, in a team full of standout individuals, this was difficult to pick. There hasn't been many players this season who have been poor. Again, you look at other contenders, possibly Fede Fernandez, on his injury record alone, hasn't kicked the ball all season. Jamal Lewis, Kieran Clark, potential nominations for this as well, for refusing to go out on loan. And some, Chris, like you, some even might argue Maximin hasn't been very good this season. Possibly Dubravka, again, hasn't been at his best. But there are a few contenders to this. I just think I've got to go with Chris Wood, as he's the only player who has featured regularly this season for us. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing the back off.
Yeah, it's a fair comment. Just coming on to you on this one, Lee, just before we do Johnny's in the comments. Good to see you, Johnny. He's saying Wood was so bad, he didn't even hold the ball up well. People say he did, but he didn't. Callum held the ball up better, and that's not even really his style. I mean, that is kind of a fair shout. And just a quick one from Ash. In fairness, Wood was probably bought more to cripple Burnley than strengthen us.
That's a good point from Ash, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, I've seen that said a lot, Lee, as well. Who's your flop of the season firstly, mate? Is it Chris Wood?
No, I'm going to go for somebody different, and the reason I'm going to go for somebody different is because when we signed this player, I was very, very excited, about as excited as I'd been about signing under the Mike Ashley era, and that was Lewis, Jamal Lewis.
It's a good shout. Yeah, it's a good shout.
We paid 15 million for him, and we've got to remember that we paid 15 million for him only a few months after Liverpool had I think it was £25 million bid rejected by Norwich City. Now, Jurgen Klopp, for all his faults, he's a whinging twat. He knows a footballer when he sees one. He does. And the fact that we managed to, we call it, steal, if you like, Lewis from under Liverpool's nose. And I've seen a fair bit of him. Him and Max Aarons were both really, really.
They both look really talented, didn't they?
Yeah,
they did, yeah.
I think in Lewis's defence, I think he came into a Newcastle United side that had absolutely zero defensive shape, or the coaching of the defence was just non-existent. And I think what's happened is the lad's been a victim of Steve Bruce. And I think when you talk about players being bruised, I think Jamal Lewis is a prime example of it. I am hopeful that he still has a future at the club under a decent coach. But for me, as I said, the reason I've gone for Lewis is because I held so much hope for what that lad potentially could have been, and for him to be so underwhelming. Whereas with Chris Wood, when Chris Wood came in, I didn't expect a great deal at all. We knew what we were getting. We had a big lump who was going to put himself about. He wasn't going to be a huge goal threat. But Lewis, as I said, the expectation I had of Lewis were far, far higher than what he's actually achieved since he came to Newcastle. Admittedly, he'd been injured for the second half of the season, hence why I didn't get a squad place. But yeah, for me, Lewis all day.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair shout, Lee. You know, it is disappointing because we all thought this was a really kind of un-Ashley type signing, wasn't it? A young player that had loads of potential, as you rightly say, mate. And yeah, he's not quite done it. I mean, I think he may have missed his opportunity because I just think we're going to strengthen in that position, you know, exponentially. I mean, we already did, arguably, with Target, you know, and even if Target doesn't come in, I just think he's going to be way behind the pecking order. But it's felt to me to pick the winner. Obviously, this is the winner out of the majority of selections that we all had on Team Evermore. And the winner for flop of the season, sadly, is Chris Wood. So there wasn't enough grit to get this Wood to stay up. He was a flop completely. So, yeah, you know, I agree with Mark and James. It's a shame, really, for Chris Wood, because coming to Newcastle's a step up in his career. You know, it really is. You know, he's been at big clubs before in the past, but he's been at those big clubs when they've been kind of down and out, like Leeds United and people like that. But at Burnley, he was effective. He come here and he just looked like he was way out of his depth. You know, and he's just, you know, I think he was there as a panic buy. I think James said there he kind of came in as a panic because we thought Wilson was not as injured as he was, and it turns out he was injured. Worse than we anticipated. Yeah, and you know, fair enough, he banged in a couple of goals, he put himself about and he caused some mischief, but I honestly think you could have had a traffic cone up there and it would have done the same job, bar the couple of goals. I don't think he's that good of a player at all, and I just don't think that, you know, he kind of reminds me of Alan Smith. When Smith was here and everyone said, oh, he works hard, and then the counter argument was, but he's shite. And that just went back and forth like a tennis game in every boozer in the Northeast, really. And Chris Wood strikes me as a similar type of player. Fair play, he seems like a good lad, but yeah, flop of the season, well deserved in my eyes, guys. Got a couple of comments flying in there. So we've got Dan saying, plot twist next season, Wood does a Joe Linton and rips the league apart, assisted Wilson 17 times with his noggin.
Stranger things have happened.
Well, you can be invited to my wedding to Michelle Keegan, mate, when that happens. I'll believe that when I see it. Mike Ellis saying, under the new regime, Lewis would never have been bought because, he didn't have the character to succeed. That's a fair shout, Mike. It sounds harsh, but it's a fair shout. Johnny's saying, at least he worked hard as he could, just no quality. That's a fair shout, Johnny. He is a hard worker, but as I said, same with Alan Smith. He's not particularly great. Simon's in the comments saying, Gail, what happened there? Couldn't get a game when Wilson was injured for nearly 2 seasons. Simple, Simon. Shite snail. Belongs in the Championship. He's not good enough for Premier League level anymore, mate. So Gail should have been set out to pasture years ago. It's only because we were ran by a complete bunch of wankers that he was still here, mate. So I'll gladly see the back of Dwight Gale, to be fair, in the summer. So coming on to the last category of the first half before we do a little swap over. I feel like Manchester City here, lads. Swapping over the squad. We've got squad depth tonight. So the game of the season is the last category of the first half. So coming to you on this one first, Lee. game of the season. Who was your game of the season, mate? There's a few to choose from. Who was your game of the season?
This one's a very, very easy one for me. And like James, I was at every home game this season, but the Arsenal game, the final home game of the season. Effectively, the Arsenal game for me was a 90-minute global advertisement for Newcastle United.
Definitely.
It was. If you could have written a script for what that game would have been like, you couldn't have written it as well as it turned out. We had a top 6 team who had everything to play for. Newcastle were already safe. Yeah, so we weren't playing a Crystal Palace or a Burnley or somebody or a Brentford. This was a top quality side with everything riding on the game. The fans, the Wor Flags display prior to the match, just literally. I've been quite emotional in the ground on a number of occasions this season, Tottenham for one. But I was sat next to the lad who I've sat next to for a good few years, and he just literally was open-mouthed prior to kickoff. The atmosphere throughout the 90 minutes, didn't calm down. It was loud, it was vociferous, it was what you call it, almost guttural noise for the entire match. And the scenes at the end, it was really, really important that we finished on a high. This season, but to finish on that type of high with the world looking on. So if we're talking about signing Renan Lodi, if we're talking about signing Paqueta, if we're talking about signing anybody, show them that match, show them that 2-hour spectacle on that Monday night. And I would challenge any professional footballer not to look at that and think, there's a club that I want to play for. There's a club that is actually going places. So for me, absolutely hands down, the Arsenal game, and I will hear no argument.
Yeah. Lynchman, are you going to choose Arsenal or are you going to argue with Lee?
Again, this was an incredibly easy pick for me. Just like Lee, the last home game of the season, Arsenal 2-0. It was the perfect way to cap off an incredible season and a real statement of intent to go and beat the top 6 side and a very good Arsenal team gunning for Champions League qualification. And we destroyed them. We gave them a proper footballing lesson. Performance aside, what was so special for me, as Lee rightly said, was the entire atmosphere. Wor Flags were unbelievable. Just when you thought, their displays couldn't get any better. I've been at every home game this season lately. They go and pull off that breathtaking show with every seat in the stadium having something on it. And I do believe that was the best atmosphere I've ever seen at a home game in the history supporting this team. And look, for the lucky few like myself who were there that night, those memories will last with me for a lifetime. And the players put in a performance that reflected the mood. Look, there has been some very, very good, in fact, brilliant, great games this season. The Everton 3-1, I think someone's mentioned there in the comments. Johnny mentioned there in the comments.
Jamie's there. Johnny's mentioned that in the comments,
That one, the Leicester 2-1. Chris, I had you there at that with me. That was a very, very good game. Again, atmosphere was incredible. And even the West Ham away game, the 1-1 draw at their ground, I thought we were excellent that day. But look, overall for me, the Arsenal game for performance and spectacle, it was a very easy choice for me in the end.
Fantastic. Mark, just a quick one then for you. What was your winning game of the season? The game of the season before we get to the lads in?
Clean sweep. You can't argue with the Arsenal game. I thought that the Man U game at St James's was sort of a turning point. That performance that night and really Newcastle should have won. I think that sort of set the tone then for what came next. But that full, like Lee touched on, full 90 minutes, it was a full performance, and it was a performance from the second fans came into the ground to the moment they all left later on. And it was probably still a performance later on down in the big market and wherever else people went to afterwards, because it was sensational. They were brilliant on the field. Eddie Howe got everything spot on. You've touched on Wor Flags. We cannot say enough about them, because that was just an unbelievable display. And we said it the week afterwards. Look, if you're putting together promotional material for new players coming in, show them that. And Lee said it before. Show them the game. Just show them that we said it. Just show them the Wor Flags with all the fans beforehand, and that will sell it easily.
Easily mean it. It's a clean sweep for me, and it's definitely the winner, the Arsenal game, without a shadow of a doubt. Just Dan's smashed in a great comment there. Got to read that out. An honourable mention for the Lassers game at St James's Park. As much as I'm dismayed by the structure of women's football and how essentially it successfully is based on the men's team support, you can't not applaud that. That's 100% right there, Dan. That was an unbelievable turnout by the fans for the NUFC ladies team, and we talked about that on the channel as well. It was absolutely superb, and I really hope that they can continue that support for the girls team. And I've got to get PK in before you go, Lynchman. James with a sensational comment. He is rinsing you from his sunbed in Gran Canaria. As PK.
I'm not even going to dignify that with a response.
He's living in your head rent-free, Lynchman. You can't escape him. You cannot escape, man. Even if you're on the other side of the world, he's getting you.
Me and him are going to be falling out soon, that's for sure. I'll tell you what. He's been on the ale all day, though, hasn't he?
Yes, he's getting lippy. He's getting lippy in the group chat. PK. Exactly. He's had too much survey. Mrs. Carter
needs to know his place. Needs to know his place.
Cut Mrs. Carter off. But listen, lads, we'd love having you on. And before you guys go and we do a little squad rotation, huge thanks to you two for your showing on the Evermore podcast. This is our maiden season as well, like Eddie Howe. We've loved it. We've grown massively as the season's gone on. You two boys have been a massive part of that. So thank you so much for everything that you guys have done. And we'll do a little swap around. Mark, you can do it because you're more techy. I'll cut everybody off probably. So we'll see you later, lads.
Cheers, guys.
See you, buddy.
Thanks,
lads.
Bye.
Cheers, boys. As if by magic, Mark's going to do a little swappy swap here. There's Adam. How you doing? There he is. There's the boys. Thank God Mark did that, lads. I would have sent you God knows where if I'd done it. Good. How you both doing? You all right?
Yeah, great.
Good, mate. How are you doing?
That's very good. I haven't checked the Wales score, Di. What's the Wales score been like?
I'd rather not talk about it, please.
I'm not saying anything. Scotland are the bad guys today, but I'm saying absolutely nothing.
We lost 2-1. A little bit unlucky, I will say, because we had our B and C team out today. But there you go. That's what happens when you play a good team like Poland, I suppose.
Oh, well, there you go, mate. There you go. Well, let's talk about Newcastle instead, Di. That'll cheer you up, mate. Instead.
That'll cheer me up. No,
we've had a great season. So we're going to come on to the first section of the second part of the show, and it's signing of the season. So I'm going to start with you, Di, to cheer you up. Who has been your Newcastle United signing of the season, mate?
I mean, the obvious answer is probably the correct one in Bruno, but I think there's been so many players who've come in and made a positive impact. You could even make the argument that the manager has probably been the signing of the season as well. I think it's just been an incredible turnaround since January. Everything that's happened. Yes, the players have come in. I think the most important question in this is not necessarily who is the best signing, but more like the impact. What impact have these people had? Because it's not like we've gone out and signed superstars. No one was digging about for Big Dan Burn for 13 million, or no one was chasing Matty Target. These are the players who, yes, okay, they're not the big names, but they've come in and had a real impact. So Bruno is without question the sign of the season for me. I think he's going to be our David Silva. He's going to be the one who we build a team around moving forward. But I also think, it's important that we remember this is not just about money and everything else. This is about kind of gelling these players into the squad and the impact and everything else they've had. So, like Simon said in the comments there, Bernard's, fantastic. To be honest, it's very actually difficult to pick because everyone who's come in and has an impact, apart from, God bless him, Chris Wood. So I think it's not actually as easy a task. There's one easy answer, but when you actually kind of dig a little deeper, you could pick anyone, manager included.
That's very true. Well, I've got the winning envelope here, mate, as I've done for the rest of the show. So coming on to you, Adam, who is your signing of the season, mate? Are you picking the obvious, or are you picking someone a bit different, mate? Or?
Well, not surprisingly, Di took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that actually...
He does that. He's good at that.
Yeah. I was going to say, in hindsight, it has to be Eddie Howe because he signed the other 5 people.
Yes.
This club may have survived regardless of who we brought in after our January spending, but we wouldn't have signed those 5 people specifically had it not been for Eddie Howe, I don't think. I think those were the 5 people that he wanted. And that is, had an unbelievable impact on where the club went after January. I mean, I think Bruno is the best player we signed. He's probably the best player we've had at the club for a long, long time. But you could make an individual argument for any of the 5 players, the impact they had. We've not had a left back like Matt Target for too bloody long. We've not had a left-footed centre-back like Dan Burn for too long. We've not had a right-back anywhere near the standard of Kieran Trippier since maybe Warren Barton. So all 5 of them had a remarkable impact. But I think, like Dice said, sometimes the easy answer is the right answer, and Bruno is the best player we signed in January.
Absolutely. And PK's in the comments, and he's totally right, lads. You're both right. Eddie Howe's a great shout from the pair of you. Eddie Howe has been absolutely sensational, no doubt about that. Just before we go to Mark, we've got, again, Simon saying, totally agree with Trippier. The one who came, Howe gave him his chance when he was a Burnley manager. Absolutely, that's Howe's influence. Lee's in the comments, even though he's come off the show. Could be argued Trippier, a name across Europe with the project. Absolutely. He was a huge player. We're going to talk about Trippier, I think, in a few minutes as well. Mark, just coming on to your signing of the season before I announce the winner. Who was your signing of the season? Are you going to, again, go with the obvious candidate, or, are you going to give us a bit of a different choice, mate?
Yeah, I think, again, Target was absolutely exceptional when he came in.
He was brilliant.
It's
brilliant.
Again,
steady,
another one of those.
Steady, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's not a big name. He's not a Trippier that came in. But he's done a very, very good job and really helped down that left-hand side, especially when you look at the lack of support that he gets at that side. Trippier is a huge signing, and was nearly my choice. And I think just more so for the work he's kind of put in off the field. Well,
sorry, I saw that comment come in. I had to get that one up, mate. I had to get that one up.
I mean, I was dying for him to go back at one point, but there we go. That's a different story. But no, for me, looking at it from the outside, Trippier, I said, for his work off the field as well as on it, because I think he's just done so much. That leadership, and that was something that was sorely lacking at the club, and I think he's a massive part of that. But I've gone the obvious route, and I went Bruno. And I've got to be honest with you, I didn't even consider Eddie Howe, and I know that's terrible, but I was thinking of signing as in player. But you're absolutely right. Eddie Howe's probably the choice based on that, because without him, the other things don't happen. But player-wise, I went Bruno because he is just, I said it earlier, he is on a completely different level.
He is. And to be fair, Davey's got a good shout in the comments there as well. That Trippier probably helped us sign Bruno, which is a great shout. Just before I announce the winner, Di, you wanted to jump in with some of them, mate, didn't you? Had something to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Mark a question, actually, just interested in what you think about Target and how this might kind of play out for Newcastle and Villa, as we both have, different hands to play in this particular game, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, my thought was the whole thing was done. It was the transfer fee had been agreed and things, but it's been a strange one from Villa's point of view, that I think there's almost a reluctance now for it to happen, but I don't know whether there's anything that they can do about it. But I think it's more Target that it's come from that agreement was in place, but I'm not sure that. I don't know whether it's come from family side that he doesn't want to move up here, which I find strange. But he's adored, and you saw. I mean, we touched on it after the Arsenal game. You saw the reaction that he had from the fans, and he was visibly moved by that reaction. And I thought at that point, he's a Newcastle player for all intents and purposes, but. I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen. I would have been really surprised if it didn't happen. It's almost a concern now that one doesn't go through, because I think he is probably the better option of the two that are around. We did the Lodi video the other day, and I think Target just gives you a better sort of balance at left back there, and. Certainly I think from a Villa point of view as well, I think you want that balance in that position. So I would have loved to have for him to have gone back. But I just think he has to really be that signing now.
Well, your dog agrees, Mark.
The dog
definitely agrees. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that.
His dog. He's actually trained his dog Di to shout out stats, so he's shouting about Matty Target's distance covered there. So you count the barks. That's like the kilometers covered.
Tackles next.
Per game.
Tackles
Yeah,
next.
crosses.
Tackles next. It'll be, yeah, like a little ball could be like a 0.5 or something. But yeah, listen. Just before we announce the winner, I've got to give this guy a shout in the comments, because if I'm going to give an award for the best YouTube name, you are going to win it hands down, mate. The Sweaty Yeti is absolutely superb, mate. So I'm creating a new award just for that, best YouTube name of the night. And thank you so much for your positive comment, mate. Really appreciate that.
Not just the name. I love the picture. That picture is incredible.
The picture is superb, absolutely superb. Yeah, the comment, and the
absolutely.
picture.
You win tonight. That's it.
The perfect trifecta. We'll just create a new award for the Sweaty Eddie. The best comment of the night, the best handle of the night, mate. Well done. So listen, just to pick the winner for the signing of the season, no question. I think we all agreed in the majority. The player of the season, as you two lads have rightly said, is Bruno. The signing of the season is Eddie Howe. Now you guys have mentioned it, but the player of the season is definitely Bruno Guimaraes. I mean, we had a feeling he was going to be good, but we didn't. None of us were experts of league on football. You know, we had a feeling he'd be good. We had no idea he was going to be this good and this impactful. Mark, just pull up one of your stat slides there if you don't mind. And we'll just show a little bit of just what Bruno has done, and we'll maybe just get a little bit of the guy's take on this. I mean, even just looking at that, if you're not even into stats, they don't turn you on. When something's green, it's generally good. And when something's red, it's generally bad. As you can see, this guy's got all greens across the board there. You look at his heat map, he's an all-action midfielder. Mark, just getting your take on the stats that you bashed up, mate, and then we'll get the guy's opinion before we move on. I mean, this guy can do it all. He can't just play one midfield position. He could play every single one, couldn't he?
Pretty much. Look, those green sections, they are based on against the other midfielders across the 5 leagues. My line at the bottom is wrong. It should mention that it's based on percentile figures against the rest, the top 5 European leagues. He is in. Yeah, exactly. So when you look at it, they're all above the green. I always do it like this: green is over 50, red is under 50. It just stands out that way. But pretty much all of Bruno's are 80 and above, and he is. We've banged on about this for weeks. He is that good, and he's just a brilliant midfielder, and in all of those things that he does exceptionally well, and every part of his game just stands out and screams class.
Yes, he's just phenomenal. Adam, just getting your take on those stats, mate, just before we move on. What's your take on Bruno in terms of what he's done? Looking at those stats, mate, how good can this lad be for us?
Well, he's already our best player. He's already our most impactful player, in my opinion. I think I said on this conversation a month or 6 weeks ago, he's one of the true box-to-box midfielders. And that was a thing of the past for a while, right? You were either a holding midfielder or a number 10, but nobody was both. And he really is. So he gets up and down the park. I think he scored more goals for us this season than he had in the last couple of seasons at his former club. So I'm not sure we should be expecting, 8-10 goals a season from the lad, but if he can chip in with 5 or 6 or 7 from midfield, that will be really, really impactful. And he's shown he can do it. He's a great finisher, which again, I don't think a lot of us knew about him. I thought he was more of a defensive holding
Me too.
midfielder.
Yeah.
But as I've said, he's clearly more of a box-to-box player, and he clearly fits into what Howe is trying to do with that middle three, that sort of triangle in midfield. I think he's taken the role that Joe Willock was supposed to play as a box-to-box midfielder, and it's going to be hard for Joe Willock to get back in the team, I think, given how good Bruno's been. And he's got the flexibility to play all 3 of those roles, I think. So yeah, tremendous signing, and as I've said, probably the best player we've signed in 15 plus years, I would think.
Absolutely. Di, just getting your take in there, just on Simon's comment as well, is running the 96th minute for Leicester was amazing. That shows you not just desire, but fitness as well of the lad. I mean, those two together is a hell of a combination for a midfielder, isn't it, mate?
It really is. And I think everything Adam said there about the goals is the key here, in my opinion. He is such a talented player. And when he was playing in France, he was obviously doing a certain thing. He was much more used to kind of breaking things up. Yes, pushing forward, but letting other people do that. Here has been given the freedom, if you like, to push on and get goals. And I think it's been a long, long time since we've had someone who can do that and brings that. You talked about maybe, getting 8 or 10 goals or whatever. I think that's got to be his target next year, because I think that's the kind of player we've needed. I think we will have someone, if it's Joe Linton or someone else moving forward, who'll be able to hold. And I think it allows someone like Bruno to push on, be destructive when we haven't got the ball, but also be effective on the other side of the ball as well. And I think that's really, really important. And I think we've been lacking that for such a long time. And the change there in the goals scored between France and here, going up a level in terms of difficulty and everything else, is really, really telling. And I think the thing for me about him is the excitement. He's just someone I don't think I've ever seen play for Newcastle in that sort of way. Probably, since we, I obviously love a Welsh link, but Gary Speed, in the terms that he did a bit of everything, and obviously
just
Bruno
presence, isn't it? Presence in the midfield. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Bruno is obviously better, though it breaks my heart to say it, than Gary Speed. But I like in that type of mold, someone who can score goals, someone who can be destructive, someone's a good bit of everything. And the lowest stat that Mark had on the board there was he was dispossessed 4 times. I mean, that's mad. But the fourth percentile percentage. You explain these things better than me, but you know what I mean.
He really does. I struggle myself. Man.
I assume. You know what I mean. But yeah, I think that thing is that in itself is an incredible stat. To be in the lowest 4% or whatever. So again, it just goes to show what he can do for us. And I agree with everything the lads have said. He's just a fantastic player.
Absolutely. Listen, we've got loads of comments to go through, but we have got a little bit of breaking news live on Evermore. This is obviously something that, as the new Newcastle United, it's just incredible for us to bring this to you. So I'm just looking at the Oracle of Transfers here, which is Fabrizio Romano, saying that Hugo Ekitike has agreed a 5-year deal with Newcastle. So it's about the final details to be discussed with Ream before the deal is completed. So this is Hugo Ekitike. We have covered him before. We're going to be doing another kind of rumor has it when the deal's done video. So keep an eye on that. We'll probably get that smashed out straight away off the back of that. But just immediate impact, I suppose. Adam, coming to you first because you mentioned it right at the start of the show in the comments. We didn't bring you up because we were busy rambling, mate. But what kind of a signing is this going to be for us moving forward, mate?
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed we get it done right. I'm a little bit superstitious. I don't like getting ahead of things, so I won't get the shirt printed yet. But look, I love a signing like this. We've talked about it a lot in our group thread. Not only is he a really exciting young player, he can play any of those 3 positions across the front, as we've talked about before. So he can not only play through the middle as a number 9, but I think he can come in off the right. He can play down the left. Really, really exciting to have a young player like that. But I think most importantly, it's a statement about young European talent can look at Newcastle United again as a club that they can go to and develop and prosper instead of just taking a payday. And Newcastle have always been available for a payday, right? Lots of players have come to Newcastle, good, bad, and indifferent, to make a lot of money. But this lad's been talked about at PSG. He's been talked about at Dortmund, Manchester United, I think 1 or 2 others. If we sign a player like that, again, it's a big statement that a young, highly rated European talent can come to Newcastle and really develop and prosper. Interestingly, he's playing at the Toulon tournament right now. In fact, his team just beat Saudi Arabia 5-0 today, which was interesting. He only
did he go like that? Did he go? Sorry, lads.
He only played the last 30 minutes. I know he's working his way back to fitness. But anyway, I think this is a really exciting opportunity and a player that I support 100%. If we're signing him for that kind of money, I think that Eddie's obviously said that he's someone he really wants. So very, very excited if we can get him over the line.
Unbelievable. And I think some of the lads have been saying in the comments, bye Gale. I think I said that at the start. I think Gale was gone regardless, but that is a hell of a signing. And listen, we'll have a follow-up video on that. We're not going to go too off topic here because this is about the awards for the end of the season, but we will have a rumor has it video coming out very soon, guys. So stay tuned to the channel, click that like and subscribe button, and you'll get the notification bell as well if you hit that, just to let you know when that video will be coming up. And I'm sure Mark will have that stat computer whirling about how good Hugo Ekitike is, mate. So absolutely brilliant. So yeah, obviously moving on to the next category, which we have is the goal of the season. So I'm going to come to Adam first on this one, mate. We had a lot of conversations about these, didn't we, in the group chat, about who was goal of the season. Honourable mention to PK, who was sunning himself. He picked Miggy against Palace, which is a good shot. But who's your choice, Adam?
Well, the good news is there's lots of different options to talk about, right? If we had done this halfway through the season, it might have been Callum Wilson against Burnley, maybe, or
That was a hell of a strike as well, though, wasn't it? To be fair,
Callum,
yeah.
Callum Wilson against Palace probably as well. But yeah, there are lots of different options now. I went for Bruno against Leicester just because I love the fact that it looked like the ref was about to blow the whistle. It looked like the ball was going out of play for a goal kick, and then Matt Targett wins it back, flips it down the line. Joe Willock somehow gets past that first player and then sort of rumbles down the wing like a drunken sailor, which I loved. And then Bruno to make that run from inside our half, right? I think he was behind Joe Willock when Joe Willock picked up the ball. So he ran further than Joe Willock and timed that run into the box so perfectly. And that header was just fantastic. And if nothing else, it was worth it just to see St. James's Park almost lift clear off the ground in celebration. I mean, I think you were there, right, Chris? I mean, it just must have been.
It was crazy. I was in the Melbourne stand, which is normally prawn sandwich brigade for us, but they went mental in there, absolutely mental. The guy next to me, I was shaking him, shouting Bruno, and he was kind of just going like that.
Yeah, I would have absolutely lost my shit and probably my shirt at the same time had I been in the stadium when that goal went in. So that won my goal of the season, but lots of good options.
Absolutely. There's loads of options. Di, what was your goal of the season, mate? Are you going for the same one or did you pick a different one, mate?
I picked a different one. I think in terms of sheer quality, like the quality of the goal, it has to be Callum Wilson's overhead kick against Palace. Someone's just putting the comments there, the back heel against Southampton. That was a great finish, don't get me wrong, but that was a ridiculously good goal against Palace. That overhead kick, such composure and like to kind of have the awareness to do that was fantastic. My answer, though, which kind of maybe is almost a moment of the season as well, but was the John Joe Shelvey goal against Leeds. I think we'd got to a point in the season where things were definitely getting better. You could see what was trying to happen, where you could see the improvements we were going for, but the results weren't following. And I think that was the moment, that was the goal, that was the game where things kind of turned around and we looked like we could keep clean sheets. We looked like we could bully teams. We looked like we could go and, be scrappy and get the results that we needed to. And we hadn't done that all season. Even the Burnley game that was our first win, there was a marginal offside decision, which, was the right call, but went our way in the middle of that. So, I feel like that was the real turning point. And also, I think it gave John Joe Shelvey a bit of an extra shove to go and show what he could contribute to the side because he had been very poor under Bruce. So I think it just kind of was a perfect storm of lots of different things. And it was, I maintain, our most important win of the season as well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would say the same thing. Just before I come to you, Mark, Johnny's given Miggy a shout for quality and a bit of Bruno magic as well, obviously, for the other side of it. Who was your choice, Mark, for your goal of the season before we announced the winner?
Yeah, well, I went for Wilson's overhead kick as well because I just think it was it was one of those moments where you love to see something like that. I think for sheer effect, absolutely, it is Bruno's diving header against Leicester because the place just erupted. It was another moment in this second half of the season that has just been incredible. But for pure technical bliss, I think for a finish, that overhead kick was just wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was such a hard choice, and as Adam rightly said, if you try to do it in the first half of the season, you'd never even had these levels of selections to choose from. Callum Wilson, obviously, with a couple of unbelievable goals, as Di rightly says. Shelvey's scruffy goal against Leeds was so important for the magnitude of it. But the winning goal, wasn't any of those that were very, very close. We kind of deliberated over it. But I think the average that we all had, and Simon's jumped in the comments there, you're reading my mind, mate. It was Kieran Trippier and that free kick against Everton. Now, the reason that this won goal of the season, it was a fantastic free kick for starters, right? To many people, it wasn't a sexy back heel or an unbelievable overhead kick, but I think everything about it, that Everton game, just the magnitude of it, how big it was, how much we had to win against relegation rivals, and the fact that this guy stood up, who is one of the best players in Europe in his position, who's a leader, who's just a serious player, and he said, "I'll have this," and he just put it in. You heard the noise, hit it off the stanchion and up. T-Rex is flapping with his arms in the air. It was absolutely a thing of beauty. So for me, and I think for the rest of the guys, as a whole overall selection, it was definitely Kieran Trippier's free kick. But God, any of those goals could have got in, lads. But I mean, to have a player that's that dangerous from set pieces once again is just amazing to have. And I can't wait to see how many he gets next season.
I do think he loses points though, just on the basis that it's not against a real goalkeeper. It's someone with not fully formed arms. So I do think he loses points for that.
That's very. I'd say it's a good job that lad didn't tie himself to the post. It might not have went in. He might have headed off the line. That oil lad.
I forgot about that.
Kieran Trippier could have completely lost the plot there when that one's coming in. But we've got a couple of comments there just before we go in there. So yeah, a lot of love for Bruder there. The diving header from Davey, absolutely. Yeah, good evening to you too, Mohammed. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. And we've got Daniel saying that yes, Ekatike is confirmed. We've just mentioned that before, mate, but we are going to be having a follow-up video for that as well. Absolutely. And I think Mohammed's saying, what's that? He's saying that Salah will become free in 2023. That is ambition, mate. That is ambition to the highest degree. Well done, mate. Well done. Right. So listen, we'll get into the last category then. The last winning award of the night and the last winning award of the season, which is the most improved player of the season. Mark, I'll come to you first on this one. This was a funny one, wasn't it? Because we had a few different choices and a few different shouts. I mean, just before we talk about it, again, it all goes back to the manager, Eddie Howe, doesn't it? He takes the credit for improving so many of these players. They're all good players, and they were bruised by just, I'd say Mike Bassett. It makes Mike Bassett look like fucking Pep Guardiola, does Steve Bruce. But he just ruined these talented footballers. But Eddie Howe has got a tune out of them. Who was your most improved player of the season, mate? Is it the obvious one?
I think so. I think you can make arguments for Emil Kraft, who's discovered form. You can make an argument for Shelby because he's come back from the dead almost. Shaw as well. We touched on this the other week that he looked like he was gone from the club at one point, and he's now signed a new deal, and he looks back to his best. But the difference in Joelinton, and I know it's a difference in position and things, and we go back to our video that we did about him. That it is just a pure transformation of a player where you have somebody that is derided. It wasn't just split opinion. I think the majority thought he was gone. He wasn't going to last. And now he's a mainstay, and he's absolutely. I said this before about Target. He's absolutely adored by the Geordies now. He's taken this role on and has just excelled, and could possibly save you an absolute fortune in the transfer market now as well.
I think he doesn't. There's a couple of mentions there from Simon as well in the comments about Fraser and Kraft as well. But just coming to you, Adam, for your choice, mate. Who was your most improved player of the season then? Was it one of those three there that Simon just mentioned in the comments?
Yeah, I think they've all been covered really well. I mean, I think you have to give it to Joelinton just for the sort of block of improvement, or the sort of block of games that he improved over. But Fabian Schär is certainly a close second. He was fourth, maybe even fifth choice centre back under Bruce, and came in almost right away after Howe took over. And has been really tremendous. So I think you could say Shaw would be a really good shout as well, as would Fraser. Although again, it's the number of games, right? It's how many games you're ever going to get out of that guy. And being good over 10 games is not the same as being good over 25 or 30 games. So I think you have to give it to Joelinton. But again, Howe improved almost every single player, top to bottom, from the goalkeeper through to the strikers. You could say an improvement at every level of the field, and that's really impressive stuff.
And what can he do with Ekatike? Let's wait and see what happens there. Unbelievable. Di, coming on to you, mate. Just before we do, Johnny's in the comments saying, Big J7 by miles, still needs to improve passing and awareness, but what a battleship in the midfield. Who's your selection, Di? Are you going for Big Joe as well, mate?
Yeah, I'm completing a full house here, mate. I don't think I don't like to use superlatives quite as often as the Lynchman does, but I do think I've never seen a change in a player in my life at Newcastle United from where he was and the things that were said about him, and the abuse he was given and all sorts, to now he's pretty much undroppable, is I don't think I've ever seen a player like it at Newcastle, and it's remarkable. And I think everyone has mentioned the obvious ones there. Kraft. I don't really like Jacob Murphy, but Howe's got a tune out of him even. Cher is another one who probably running up close second. And again, you talk about improvement. What he's made out of Emil Kraft is night and day. So it's obviously a compliment for how good a coach that Howe is, but it also goes to show that there really is a good player in Joe Linton, and it just had to be found. And he's been so impressive. I think the last 10 games or so of the season, he even added goals to that kind of destructive makeup that he had, and he's just been a pleasure. And I think the highlight of it for me is that it would be quite easy, I think, for a player who's been given that much shit over such a long time to be a bit, giving it this when he scores a goal or something like that.
Perez.
And he's not exactly, and he loves it, and he's absolutely buzzing. And I remember the after the Norwich game when he was just basically, you couldn't get him off the pitch at the end of the match. He was just stood there singing with the fans. That is a sign of someone as well who's a proper good quality human being, and he really gets what this whole thing is about. Even all the shit he was given, he's still willing to kind of commit and show what he's capable of. And yeah, he's without question our most improved player and our player of the season, and probably our most handsome man, which is quite a contest as well. But
Callum Wilson's got to get that, mate. God, that guy.
Oh, do you know? I saw Jamal Lascelles in a video the other day, and you forget he's also a dashingly handsome man, but I still give it to Big Joe. I wouldn't like to mess about with Big Joe either. He looks like he's fully in control of himself. So,
he looks a bit tasty. I think Davey summed it up there. 0 to hero, absolutely fantastic. And we just got a quick comment there. Greetings from Norway. Greetings to you as well, Roy. Thanks for coming in the comments. But Adam, you want to add a point there, mate, as well, just to this, don't you?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick shout for moment of the season. Sean Longstaff calling out the media.
I was just thinking that when Di was talking, mate.
Yeah, after the Man U game, wasn't it? Joe Linton bossed the midfield that day. And Sean basically said it's absolute bullshit what you people say about this man. He's everyone's first pick in training. And I just how true did that end up being? I mean, fantastic. It says a lot about the character of the lad, and kudos to him. Hopefully, he's on the right path now. And I think playing in the middle there with Bruno really helps him too, that sort of resilient connection they have. So long may it continue.
I think as well, it's a great shout on that comment as well, Adam. And I think for sure Longstaff as well, a lot of people were getting a bit polarized with Sean Longstaff. And I think he went up in a lot of people's estimations there by standing up for Joe. And he showed something there, Sean, like almost kind of captain type vibe, didn't he, where you stick up for your players when people are going to run them down. I'm not saying he's going to be the captain, next season or anything, but it was good to see that from Sean. But I think, as you rightly say, Adam, and Di as well, it shows you the character of Joe Linton and probably what a well-liked guy he is in the squad as well. That Sean just had enough of these guys taking pot shots at him, didn't he? And he just said, right, come on, less of that. Great comment there by Ash. Callum Wilson got a swollen lip and a tooth knocked out. He still looked better than I ever will. I think I said the same thing as well, actually, on the podcast after Ash. He's a very handsome man, is Callum Wilson as well. And just one more comment for Davey there. First season for a long time, I didn't want to win. That's a great shout, Davey. Just summing up the winner as well. Most improved player, I've got to go with the lads as well. It's got to be Joe Linton. Emil Kraft was a real close second for me because he went from somebody who was totally manure and I didn't even think was a footballer at all. Like I thought somebody was taking the piss, like it was some kind of reality TV show contest, become a footballer, and Kraft had just managed to get in there because he didn't look like he'd do anything. But Eddie Howe's got him to look like an actual right back and play well. But yeah, Joe Linton's so transformative. Weirdly enough, Di, just to bring this comparison, I think Mark smashed this one in our Joe Linton video. The only player you can think about who's gone from one position to the next and made such a transformative kind of progression is Gareth Bale, from left back to left wing. But even when he was a left back, Bale, he was playing better in that position than Joe Linton was up front. And you've just got to give the lad huge credit, and you've got to give Eddie Howe unbelievable credit that he's managed to put an arm around this guy, get him to become this player as well, get him to knuckle down, learn a different position, be dedicated, be disciplined. The way he tackles people, I mean, Christ, Mark, getting your opinion on this, it's like a prime Patrick Vieira sometimes watching Joe Linton, isn't it? He's incredible in midfield.
It's the obvious thing to say. He is a unit. he does. He gets himself about. He doesn't shirk from challenges. He can shrug the best off the ball. You look back at the game even before this season. You go back to last season in the game against Villa and the battle that he had with Tyrone Mings, and he bullied Mings. Mings is a centre-back, and you don't expect that sort of thing to happen. And he absolutely bullied him. He played him perfectly. So we kind of saw he had that in his locker. It had never been really utilised properly. So to have that physical ability in the middle of the park now is just it's just brilliant, and it does just show really, really good management by Eddie Howe for sort of seeing that and starting that sort of process off.
It's a good shout about Tyrone Mings. We will be having a rumour has it video about Tyrone Mings because his name has been linked with us. But if you don't follow us already on Twitter, please do. We're at Evermore_NUFC. And we did make a funny comment about I'd rather have Tyrone from Snatch. And then Tyrone from Snatch actually commented back and followed the Twitter channel. So absolutely fantastic. So come and follow us on Twitter, just like Tyrone from Snatch, who I'd much rather have than Tyrone Mings. But we will get stuck into that in a minute. So a couple of comments before we wrap up, lads. Johnny is saying Trippier came in, taught him his craft. But very good, Johnny. I like that. And Ash has got that's just the comment of that there as well. So we've got a comment from Roy, I think, from Norway as well, haven't we? What we've got there. I've always said midway through the season, I'm looking forward to next season because of results. Now I finally have hope for the club again, and I'm not being afraid of a relegation scrap. It's a great shout, Roy. I think that's a great way to kind of finish it up. I think, guys, we've got that feeling of positivity back, haven't we? Just before we finish up, just on the back of Roy's comment there, Di, do you concur with that, mate? Are you excited about next season and not being involved in a relegation scrap?
Absolutely. I think the first time in a long time, we're looking forward to coming back. Like Roy said there, we're not thinking about relegation. I'm certainly not anyway. And we're thinking about moving on up. We're thinking about, top 8, maybe even, stretching beyond that, given how good our form was from January onwards. So yeah, lots to look forward to. I'm going to make it my absolute number one priority to get back to St. James's Park next season as well. So lots to look forward to.
Fantastic. Hopefully your bad luck has gone and you'll be
that's true. I am a curse. I haven't seen Newcastle win in the flesh for what feels like 300 years. So I might
not let you in, and we'll just keep you outside.
Yeah. And then if we do look like winning, if someone could just let me in the last 5 minutes, so it looked like I was a part of it, I'll be very happy with that.
Just as long as there's no time for them to get an equaliser, mate, we'll be all right. To be fair. So yeah, Adam, just to get your take as well on that, mate, just before we kind of sign off for the awards show. I suppose you concur with Roy as well, mate. Next season, we're not looking down, we're looking up, mate, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange feeling not thinking about relegation next season already. And, hopefully that's the case. But yeah, listen, I think that for the first time in a really long time, Newcastle fans are most excited about just being able to think about progress and looking forward and up instead of backwards and down. And that's a great feeling. If you offered me a single-digit league position next season, I'd bite your hand off. I'd take 8th, 9th right now. To be ahead of 11th, ahead of 10th as we were this season would be tremendous. And it sounds strange to say, but I would quite happily take just a very quiet season next season without any drama, without any roller coasters. I'm only 36, but I feel like I'm 86 watching Newcastle sometimes. Just a nice, quiet 8th place finish. I'll take it right now. Bite your arm off of that.
Always moaning Manchester United fans. Oh God, we're only 7th. We'd be like, we're 7th. Come on, get in the bag. We'd be absolutely bouncing. Exactly. But listen, lads, that's a great way for us to wrap up the award show. Thank you so much to everybody who was in the comments today. We love having you guys on board. And as I mentioned at the start, if some of you haven't already, please consider clicking that like and subscribe button. We're looking to get the subscriber count up. We've had an unbelievable weekend for new subscribers. So thank you so much to everybody who's come on board. I think we're currently sitting on about 670 something. So yeah, we're looking to get above the 700, and the goal is to get that 1,000 soon. And we've had some love in the comments there as well. So thank you so much for that, guys. And we're going to sign off now, but keep with the channel. We're going to be doing loads of Rumour Has It, short transfer videos. Some of the lads will be on. I'm on, Mark's on, Di's coming on, Adam will probably do one, James is doing one. We're all going to share them amongst everybody. So keep an eye on the channel for that. Make sure you hit that notification bell. And we will be back in the close season with some special episodes, maybe some top 10s, some all-time 11s. So keep it evermore, guys. Let's keep and support our team of Core United. What a great season. Everybody deserves an award. Everyone's a winner. We're back at school. Everyone's a winner. So thank you so much, guys. And we'll catch you later. Take care.
Cheers.
See ya.